Welcome back, friends. This is going to be a more controversial video because we're going to be talking about the topic of universal basic income. Universal basic income is an idea that has gained in popularity over the last few years. The idea is that everybody would receive money each month from the government to pay for food and housing. This idea has actually been around a very long time, and it's the idea that the government should provide its citizens with some level of support. In the United States, we already have this to some extent. So people who make less money get subsidized through tax breaks. So if you make less money, you pay less taxes. We also have social welfare programs to help people in need. What is new about the idea of universal basic income is it's setting this new level of support, and that level is housing and food for everybody. And so supporters of universal basic income are basically saying that we are wealthy enough as a society to make sure that nobody goes hungry and nobody is homeless. You can probably tell by the title of this video that I am not a supporter of universal basic income. But I'm open-minded enough to listen to the arguments. And I've got to say that a lot of the people who support the idea of universal basic income have really impressive credentials. I mean, I'm not going to list out any names here, but some of the people who support the idea I consider business geniuses. These are really smart people. Not only that, there's a number of social experiments going on today about universal basic income, where they have identified communities and they're trying this out to see what the outcomes are. I wanted to share my perspective on universal basic income because I feel like it's different from the typical arguments that you hear. Most arguments come from two main ideas: social justice and fear over the economy. Now, social justice arguments suggest that we could restructure our economy in a way to create more fairness. Fear from the economy comes from uncertainty about the future, and that uncertainty suggests the need for stronger financial safety nets. The problem with these two arguments is they're very polarizing. So whenever anybody talks about how they're not getting their fair share and they're scared, they tend to become very entrenched in their position. And these are very emotional issues that people feel very strongly about. However, I would like to suggest that neither of these arguments deal with the real issue. The real issue we're talking about is changing the very fundamental concept behind our economy. The world's economy is based on a very simple idea. You create value, then you get paid. Universal basic income creates a policy where you get paid whether or not you do any work. This is a fundamental shift in how our economy works. The current economy has developed this way for a very good reason, because it creates an environment where every person is constantly looking for how they can create value. Getting paid for creating value has been how humanity has survived throughout history. And we see this in the very famous story from Aesop's Fables of the ant and the grasshopper. In this story, the ants work all summer long gathering food. The grasshopper spends all summer long having fun. And then winter comes along. And the ants all have food to eat because of all the work that they've done. Meanwhile, the grasshopper is starving. This story shows the philosophical question we're really asking here. For people who do not work, do we have a responsibility to take care of them? People who support universal basic income are saying that we can remove the concern of survival from everybody's life. They're essentially saying that the story of the ant and the grasshopper no longer matters. This is where I disagree, because I believe you have to come back to the fundamental concepts of economic activity. I want you all to participate with me in an example. So I want to start by asking you to close your eyes. And I'm going to be asking you to use your imagination. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to imagine what the world looks like 20 years from now. In 20 years, what does the world look like? What types of things do you see? What is life like? Now I'm going to ask you to take a step even further into the future. What does the world look like 100 years from now? 100 years from now, into the future, what types of things do you see? Do you have some ideas? Good. Now open your eyes. What we just did was use our imagination, and this is much more important than you think. When you run back through the thoughts that you had about the future, I am betting that those thoughts were about different advancements that we're going to make as a species. I bet you were thinking of a better life. Maybe you imagined new technologies, new advancements in science. Maybe we're living in space. Maybe you imagined that we cured major diseases. Maybe we solved big social problems like poverty and hunger and homelessness. Maybe we even created world peace. It is a very reasonable assumption for you to make that life gets better in the future because progress has always been part of the story of human history. This is the brilliance of imagination. We are the only creature on the planet that has imagination, and what that allows us to do is dream of a better future and work towards it. But here's the deal. Our dreams require work. So we can't just sit around and dream about the future. We actually have to do the work. And we're not just talking about a little bit of work here. We're talking about an enormous amount of work. You have big dreams, and to accomplish all of these great things, it's going to require a lot of jobs. Everything that you dreamed up over the next 100 years is probably going to happen. In fact, I'm betting that it will happen. All of it, but it's going to require work. We are going to need as many people as we can get working in these jobs, creating a better future for tomorrow. And when we get to the end of this 100-year period, I am betting that we are still going to be looking into the future, imagining a better tomorrow, and we are going to still need more jobs. This all comes back to the fundamentals of economic activity. So when you're talking about universal basic income, you are making a fundamental choice. You are choosing between our current system of payment for value versus payment for no value. When you look at the next 100 years and you think tremendous value still needs to be created, well, our current economic system is still very relevant, and it will remain relevant into the future. When you look at it from that perspective, it almost seems silly, because we're sitting here talking about giving people money for doing nothing, when there is all of this work that needs to be done. Why don't we give people money for doing all of this work? If you want to give people money for curing cancer. Give people money for building houses for the homeless. Give people money for getting an engineering degree. Give people money for building a space station on the moon. I can think of so many examples of work that needs to be done, and I'm betting that you can think of examples as well. The only reason you would want to change the fundamentals of economic activity is if you were sitting here and you thought about the next 100 years and you said to yourself, I don't think anything about life needs to change for the better. You would only change our economic system if you no longer needed to create any value. But no one is ever going to say that. We're always going to say that tomorrow can be better because that's what humans do. As long as there is value to be created, let us pay somebody to do that work because there is a lot of it. The reason I do not support universal basic income is because there is a lot of work to be done over the next 100 years. Let's focus instead on creating those jobs. I believe that's what people really want. People want to contribute. And so the idea sounds nice of getting a check in the mail every month with money so you could sit at home and do nothing. But most people wouldn't find that fulfilling. What people really want is jobs. People want to do something meaningful. People want to be intellectually challenged and to be part of a team. People want jobs that are engaging and inspiring and exciting. People want to change the world for the better. And that is what business is all about. Business is about creating progress and raising our standard of living. I make all of these videos about business because I believe it's important for our future. You know, and I'm not saying that business can solve every problem, or that government doesn't have a place, or that we shouldn't tackle the real serious problems of poverty. But what I am saying is that changing the very fundamentals of economic activity is not the best tool to use. I dream of a better future for tomorrow, and I look to economics to make that happen. We can do more. We can jump higher. And together, we can accomplish great things. Business answers that fundamental economic question of how do I create more value for society so I can get paid? That is how jobs are created, and that's how humanity has progressed throughout history. So let's focus on creating those jobs. Now I want to hear from you. I know this is a controversial topic, so what do you think about universal basic income? Go ahead and leave your comments down below. And if you liked this video, if you found it helpful, click on the subscribe button. The best way to supercharge a business is through accounting and corporate finance, and I release a new video every week, so definitely come back and check out next week's video.